Synergetic Journal, January 29th, 2026. Anticipating Omnirational Democracies, Equanimity on Earth, Episode 3. Christina Herlofson, Synergetics Research Project. Unless our individual metaphysical intellect and physical brain-operated tunability were synergetically informed that, in quotes, a point is a complex entity system, end quote, how in this day and age would we intelligently know to describe the first moment of awareness as, in quotes, a looming into tunability of any system in universe? Synergetics 264.01. In fact, based on anyone's lifetime of self and otherness educated observations, some of which occurs in public or private schools, various belief system schools of religion, which teach its particular doctrine, some of which, for thousands of years, expect prioritized homage and deference paid as proof of humans' behavioral control, that accredits its primary curriculum and scripture in printed form, praised and worshipped as the first order of obedience to its particular perception of a deity. The deity's gender typically is male. He, in uppercase H, sets the groundwork for thought language's nomenclatures of this imaginary highest order. Initially, it must have been satisfying human curiosity when wondering and intuitively trusting such a being's omniscient knowledge is somewhere in the stars, maybe omnipresent, not yet differentiating the metaphysical from the physical, the finite from the infinite, the temporal from the eternal, the verb from the noun, nor with the slightest informed awareness that, in quotes, there is no verb for eternity, end quote, or that physical special cases are inherently terminal. Synergetics 263.04. This occurs in the human condition when mistakenly omitting conscionable awareness of any contrived religion education. Nevertheless, the harm is done onto self and others throughout histories of belief system inculcating, indoctrinating, default slave mentality conditioning that exacerbate perpetuated conflicts between the defensive and offensive constituents who form the developing systems governing responsibilities that always concern the people of a nation. As well, the religion curriculum omits describing the point's geometric conceptual epistemology and fails to describe, in quotes, the total omnidirectional spherical sphere of reference of the individual observer's sense-informed environment, end quote. While scholars delve into misconceptions of what is referred to as a dimensionless point, most of us are not the least concerned about this misnomer and are satisfied to learn that a point is a something that can be described as a tetrahedron because it gives our systemic thought something to grasp onto, correlating with metaphysical generalized conceptioning that facilitates the inside outing, outside inning intertransformation of the complex energy event, in quotes, experiences that are always special case event programs, end quote. Synergetics 263.04. If the entirety of the PRJWBCHM politics, religion, justice, war, belief complexes, hierarchical matrix, behavioral criterion is not putting the cart before the horse, while expecting that type of philosophic perspective accredited as theology to be a critical form of the most highly valued education, what otherwise is more ignorantly educating and damaging to the human psyche's personality and its inaccurately discrediting system awareness? We have the entire Middle East destructively self-other invalidating exemplary role models to investigate and accredit as a reality basis when and if we decide that cradle of civilization in total gradually supplanted what we were not informed of until the 20th century, as we are learning now in Synergetics regarding the geometry of self and otherness, bringing us to the consideration of nature's epistemographic evolution of experience. We can't accredit E.J. Applewhite, RBF's collaborating astute accountant, who formerly worked for the CIA, with the invented word epistemography. Synergetics uses epistemography to elucidate epistemology. In quotes, epistemology is the only kind of philosophy that matters, end quotes, writes RBF, since it is the philosophy to answer the question, how do you think? Which is modelable geometrically with models. Theologists and other educators whose theory supposedly systematically developed, omitted by their own ignorance the axis of intertangency of unity as plural and at minimum two. Since awareness begins with two, as does unity, why shun systemic thoughts, consciously coordinated awareness of omni-closest packing, omnicoherent relevance? The shunning is a fear-engendered inculcating education that is adamantly fixated on convincing children to study the religion's God, Allah, and all sound words for this deity to such extremes. The child is damaged until its accurately informed intelligence has time in a lifetime to consider critical thinking of life support explored survival stratagems that are integrals of the design of our species. Religions do not teach humans that, in quotes, every individual is an evolutionary pattern integrity, end quote, and that the nature of epistemological evolution in degrees of relative adequacy. We do not learn from any manifest religion, from millenniums, of its harmful influences that humans fulfill critical functions in respect to maintenance of the integrity of eternally regenerative scenario universe. Instead, the R factor as one of the P, R, J, W, B, C, H, M contextual parameters is satisfied with the power to control human behavior regardless of its damage to the human psyche's philosophical perspective and personality, that can more easily adjust the a priori thought to a total reality of universal principles while generalizing the concept's generalization principle. We ought to know about single and plural otherness, the prime othernesses we are learning more about in Synergetics 264.10. Isn't it high time to admit we are all cosmologists, not leaving this essential responsibility to any specialized scholastics of any professed ology to overwhelm our metaphysical physical nature? After all, we are individually designed in principle to fit into the cosmic scheme as the cosmic scheme itself evolves for our species, humans of a mind, for appraising and appreciating our metaphysical intellect and cerebral circuits, which are critical to every historical moment in the epistemological evolution awareness of an operational system conceptuality with an inherent ability to formulate our experiences, substantiated philosophy. Synergetics 265.03. The movie on Netflix, The Children Act, is a film about a young boy and a judge, both of whom are faced with life-death decisions. The viewer can reflect on any of the political, judicial, religion-protected rights and rituals that continue to be defended and protected as normal in the human condition, but which have always been detrimental. Thereby, without exception, but in any event, the R factor is validated by the J factor, the justice system's intervening authority, when the exacerbating reenacting problem is the consciously missing, synergetically informed mind-brain coordinating cosmologists' most economically accomplishable geodesics, in quotes. The geodesic line is a component concept of systems interrelationships, end quote. Synergetics 266.03. In truth, systemic thought's consciously coordinated awareness of the geodesic interrelationship line throughout human initial experience is omnicomprehensively of sub-resolvable, not yet tuned in, but oriented directionally as a point to be reasonably defined by metaphysical intellect cerebral circuits, the systemic parts that the R factor omits by default inculcated indoctrination as politics and justice, the P and J factors cultivate incurious resignation so that the PRJWBCHM can continue unabated where every degree of profit, exploitation, and the value of harm done is treated as inconsequential, of no redeeming value, especially as awareness of the geodesic most economically operational field instead could accomplish a clearly differentiated line of interrelationships that involve energy event expenditures and interaccommodating changes of interpositioning by the individual's anticipatory design science's consciously coordinated thought, language, thought, action. If we continue to exclude self as observer, being part of a system observing the integral to organic system, supplanting this potentially conscious evolution with any of the BRJWBCHM factors, it invalidates the organic self's built-in coordinating equipment, which may well be identified as are the unique crystals of a radio set. Recalling that RBF thought the first radio crystal was probably a rhombic dodecahedron. If so, then without preferring putting the cart before the horse scenarios of least rational thought, action, thought, language, conscious coordination, our individual metaphysical generalized conceptioning fields of thought, do not overlook the UIVMOFCH, universe, isotropic, vector matrix, operational field, cosmic hierarchies, rhombic dodecahedron, 6 tetravolumes, and 144 quantum modules correlating to our omni-egalitarian populations' potentially relevant degrees of freedom between apprehension and comprehension's omnidifferential lag rates. As we are learning in Synergetics 426.04, R. Buckminster Fuller, in almost all the geometric forms, where one or another provides unique economic advantage, the icosahedron and rhombic dodecahedron, the hub in those applications is the rhombic dodecahedron of Bucky's octahedron, tetrahedron, octetrus, wherein 12 facets represent the planes that are perpendicular to the 6 fundamental degrees of freedom. Until next time, gratefully, faithfully, eternally, Christina Herlofson.